This early morning, let's unleash your enlightened potential. In Buddhist literature, there is much talk of our Buddha nature. There's much talk but little explanation, and that's sadly that's part of the bread and butter of anybody who wants to coerce you. Is they will first try to shove you into a hypersuggestible state. There are many ways of doing that, but one of the ways of doing that is through deliberate confusion. It's part of the bag of tricks for Ericksonian hypnosis. So what I'm going to do is actually explain to you what Buddha nature is for two reasons. One, so that you'll be less of a target for those who wish to coerce you. And number two, so you can benefit from it. Buddha nature is a wonderful Iron Age way of describing the fact that you and I and every somewhat healthy vertebrate life form on this planet possess the neurological tools required to walk the Buddha's path successfully. What does that mean? It means that each of us, well, this didn't come out as pretty as I wanted it to. Each of us has a sympathetic nervous system. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are inadvertently and automatically accessing our sympathetic nervous system. What's so special about that? Contrary to the ravings of fundamentalists, our sympathetic nervous system is not wired for active concentration, and that's good, because active concentration paves the path of being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, and nobody wants that. Fortunately, our sympathetic nervous system, instead of being wired for active concentration, is wired for mere perception, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. This is what the Buddha referred to as sati, or mindfulness. Imagine this. Imagine, if you would, a tableau. Our ancestors, distant ancestors, leaving the trees and migrating through the African savanna. Our ancestors who were hyperfixated on one thing, practicing active concentration, would be oblivious to the early warning signs of their peripheral perceptions, and would most likely find themselves lunge for a great big predator. However, our fortunate ancestors, whose mindfulness was vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random, would be aware panoramically of sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, and scents, which would increase their chance of survival. So, once again, most things boil down to evolution. So our sympathetic nervous system evolved to support what the Buddha would come to call as mindfulness. And then we come to our parasympathetic nervous system. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we tie into our parasympathetic nervous system, which is already wired for both mental release and physical relaxation. And the Buddha referred to this as meditation. This is the key to enlightenment, this teeter-totter between inhaling and exhaling, noticing and releasing. When we experience peril, the amygdala region of our brain, which functions as the seat of fear and all our darkest impulses, really lights up and can come to dominate our choices and utterances and deeds. However, when we have a successful and effective and consistent meditation practice, beginning with perhaps 3 or 4 minutes every 12 hours or so, then something happens. Instead of our amygdala lighting up, our anterior cingulate gyrus lights up. And that region just before our midbrain is the seat of empathy, the veritable hub of our mirror neurons. And it is this that helps us to be the person that our dogs already are. It is this which helps us to be flexible, loving, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. We access this effortlessly and automatically. It has been said by the Dzogchen masters of Tibet that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. And it is the natural byproduct of a healthy meditation practice that benefits from the liberal use of both our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous systems. We don't need anyone to tell us you are enlightened. We don't need anybody's permission to practice the Buddha's teachings. We don't need a reading transmission. We don't need an empowerment. We don't need a ritual. We don't need a label. All we need to do is practice the Buddha's 12 meditations and 4 contemplations on a regular basis, and it will transform us. I don't know if you were like me, but as when I was a child, I was told to go play with my watercolored sets. And what I found most fascinating was not the paper, but the glass of clear water I'd be given. And when I dip just a drop of watercolor, I'd watch it infuse the water, first with tendrils. Those tendrils would diffuse and change the entire water from clear to opaque, to the point where me, with my limited tools and zero knowledge of chemistry, was unable to extricate the pigment from the water. Similarly, we in our existence and our sentience already have been dallying, albeit unskillfully, but we have been dallying with mindfulness and meditation. No one can take that away from us. You and me and Joe Schmo down the street, each has an enlightened potential. And I look forward to exercising that with you this morning during our formal practice, which I'd like to begin after approximately 90 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you who support this channel on Patreon, either by using their smartphones to photograph the QR code on the screen or by clicking the Patreon link in the description area below the video. If you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as profoundly as Ahsoka Tano on Lothal, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. And now let us turn our attention to this morning's practice text, which I've titled Secular Mindfulness, Meditation, and Contemplation. Just as every Olympic sprint ends with a finish line and begins with a starter's pistol, I found it beneficial for my students to have as their finish line a little teeny chant for universal empathy, and use that as a finish line, and to have as their starter's pistol a short chant, only 4 lines long, that helps to exercise our neural pathways responsible for both empathy and enthusiasm. Let's chant this together right now. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. The 12 meditations and 4 contemplations divide into 4 sets of 4. We begin with Kaya Sati's only set of 4 preliminary meditations that center on our bodies. The first 2 meditations use our breath as a starter's blocks, a sprinter's starter's blocks. And we're going to play with rhetorical questions by definition. So the actual question, the more elaborate question would be, how long are my breaths? We shrink that down to simply to be 2 words long. How long? As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the preposition how. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the adjective long. Now, we're not trying to actively change our breathing. What are we doing then? We're going to be doing the constant strategy is this. We are silently and mentally reciting words during our inhalation and our exhalation. Or I should say, in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation. And simply doing that is going to directly exercise our mindfulness and our wisdom, and indirectly free our latent empathy. That's a tall order. Let's dig in right now. Remember, sit up straight. I just keep striking the microphone. I am sorry, that must be uncomfortable for your ears. We come to the second of Centering's 4 physical preliminary practices where we mindfully notice and even investigate the coalescence of our invigoratingly sharper inhalations. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the word how. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the word short. Once again, not actively changing our breathing, just watching what's going on. Off to the right, you'll notice that at least I'm counting 2 sets of 16 rounds, and I probably count faster than you because I'm doing all this talking. But I count to 16 on the creases and tips of my 4 left fingers. I advance my left thumb during each inhalation, and this is a time-lapsed version, but I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I would keep track of the sets of 16 on my right hand. And so the first exercise on the first crease and the third crease, and then the second exercise on the first crease and the third crease, and so on. Do you have to do this? No. But if you ever wish to practice independent of these live streams, independent of these videos, it may be a useful skill to cultivate. If you have any confusions or questions about it, don't hesitate to ask me. And by the way, if at any point you have a question during this live stream about Buddhist meditation, philosophy, or application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. We come to the third of Centering's 4 physical preliminary practices, where we mindfully notice and investigate our bodies. So we're changing gears from limiting our perceptual acuity from a sphere about the length of a watermelon to a sphere that encompasses our entire body. It sounds like a tall order, but it's really not. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the perceptual verb feel. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the noun form, which functions as a synonym for our bodies. We come to the fourth of centerings, 4 physical preliminary practices where we allow our bodies to tranquilly relax. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite form, the noun form. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the word calm. Now, this is not an adjective. We're not using an affirmation. We're not trying to convince ourselves of something we're not experiencing. Au contraire, we're using the word calm as a verb because we guide our intention with our words. And it's kind of like dropping an instruction into the 3-pound squishy supercomputer that resides between our ears. We continue with Vedanasati's set of 4 jhana meditations centering our feelings. We begin with the first of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices where we savor the first jhana's blissful joy that flows from gently grinning but the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes, towards our bodies of flesh, blood, and bone. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin, and as we exhale, we return to the recitation of the noun form. Now, it's not our job to actively grin. It's not our job to force ourselves to grin. If all we do is silently and mentally recite these words, in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation, we will gain mastery on the Buddha's path. Or perhaps I should say, of the Buddha's path. We come to the second of four feeling-oriented centering practices where we savor the second jhana's peaceful joy that flows from gently grinning once again from the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes towards our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. And as you've probably already guessed, we're using thought as an umbrella term. So again, during our inhalation, we're silently and mentally reciting the verb grin. But this time during our exhalation, we are invoking or reciting the umbrella term thoughts. We come to the third of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the third jhana's contentment. By mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. And we do that quite simply by silently and mentally reciting the sensory verb feel as we breathe in, and reciting the noun thoughts as we breathe out, remembering that we're using thoughts as an umbrella term for the mind's capacity to emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. We've arrived at the fourth of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices where we savor the fourth jhana's neutrality by allowing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining to tranquilly relax. And how do we do that? Simple. During our inhalation, we begin with the noun thoughts, which functions as an umbrella term. So we silently and mentally recite the word thought, the noun thoughts. As we exhale, we return to our verb calm, the word we use to guide our intention. Volition, if you're playing Scrabble. We continue with Chittasati's second set of 4 jhana meditations that center our mind. One moment. Thank you for your patience. We begin with the first of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 5th jhana's sphere of infinite spaciousness by mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our mind's ability to see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and the like. And this time we're using the noun mind as an umbrella term. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the perceptual verb feel. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the noun mind. We come into the second of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 6th jhana's sphere of infinite awareness, which we generate by allowing our mind to gladden. As towards it we gently smile, once again from the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes. We silently and mentally recite the verb grin as we breathe in, and as we breathe out, we silently and mentally recite the noun mind. Now we come to the third of 4 mind-oriented centering practices where we savor the 7th jhana sphere of non-graspability as we allow our minds, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, to tranquilly relax in the most sustainable way. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun mind, and as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb calm. It's not our job to actually force our mind to calm. It's enough to simply play with these words and silently and mentally in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation. Remember, we're already wired to relax and release during each exhalation. We don't have to force it. All we have to do is allow it. Now we come to the 4th of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 8th jhana sphere of acquiescent non-labeling by experiencing the liberating equanimity or balance of our controlling tendencies to shove and to reach. As silently and mentally we silently and mentally recite the noun mind as we breathe in, and as we breathe out, we recite the verb free, like one might release a dove during a magic show. Having completed the 12 meditations, we end with Dhammasati, or Anika Vipassana's, set of 4 impermanence contemplations to help us circumstantially let go. These will involve 4 rhetorical questions, which we do not strive to answer, but merely ask, and silently and mentally and in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation. We begin with the first of 4 contemplations, where we consider coarse impermanence, and we silently and mentally ask the concise question, what change? We come to the second of 4 contemplations, where we consider subtle impermanence with the words, what fade? We come to the third of four contemplations, where we consider very subtle impermanence with the question, what cease? Now we come to the fourth of four contemplations, where we consider relinquishing, surrendering, or letting go. We do so by silently and mentally reciting how as we breathe in and yield as we breathe out. Let us seal our practice by chanting the 4 immeasurables. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from thy happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could even help support this channel on Patreon, either by capturing the QR code with your smartphone's camera or by clicking the Patreon link in the description area below the video. In approximately 2 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's mid-morning lesson and meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is